Every place has its monster. The thing the grown-ups whisper about to keep the children in line. Some place has a witch in the woods. Some place has a man who takes you if you wander too far. Where I grew up, in the deep mountains of northeast China, our monster had a name: the Dama monkey. Literally, the big horse monkey. They called it that because of its face, long and narrow, like a horse, but wrong, covered in coarse black fur, a mouth crowded with fangs, and eyes that, in the dark, gave off a faint yellow light. My grandmother used it on me almost every night. Whenever I was too restless to sleep, she'd lower her voice, rough from a lifetime of wood smoke, and say, "If you don't close your eyes right now, the Dama monkey will climb in through the window and carry you away." For a child in the Northeast, no threat worked faster. Just those three words, and we'd be under the quilt in an instant, certain that a few inches of cotton wadding could stop anything in the world. The way she told it, the Dama monkey hunted disobedient children especially. It would dig out their eyes with its claws, open their bellies, pull out what was inside, and eat it while they watched. I know how that sounds. A grandmother's story, sharpened to keep a boy in bed. But here is the thing I have never been able to explain away. My fear didn't come only from her stories, because in my grandparents' village, things really did happen. And one winter, when I was 8 years old, I saw the Dama monkey with my own eyes. It begins 18 years ago. I was 8. That winter, my parents were buried in work, so I was sent out to stay with my grandparents in the countryside, a remote little village folded into the mountains of the Northeast. No more than 20-odd households scattered across a hollow in the hills. This was the 90s, and life out there was hard. Every house was built of packed yellow earth and mud. The 2 roads through the village were rutted dirt that turned to swallowing mud whenever it rained. I dreaded going. For one thing, there were almost no other children. For another, at night, especially in the bitter cold of winter, the whole village put out its lamps early and went to sleep. And a silence settled over everything so complete that a single dog barking in the distance felt like a scream. We slept on the kang, a wide brick platform built along one wall, with the heat from the kitchen fire channeled through flues underneath it. In a northeast winter, the kang is the warmest place in the house, and the whole family sleeps on it, side by side. And every night, the moment I showed any sign of not wanting to sleep, out came the Dama monkey. It worked so well that I would lie there needing to relieve myself until dawn, rather than open my eyes in the dark. That winter was different from the others. My grandparents' home had unexpected guests, neighbors who had gone away years ago to work and come back rich, the Zhao family. Their house had stood empty for years, so the women stayed behind to clean it, while the men, old Joe and his son Danny, came over with wine and dishes to sit with my grandfather and talk about old times. Even I, raised in the city, had rarely seen a table so full. Golden, crackling roast duck, braised pork, dark and fragrant, tender, juicy sausage, and several kinds of fruit I had never seen before, from somewhere far in the south. To get more of it, I clowned and showed off at the table until the grown-ups roared with laughter. And before I knew it, I had eaten until my belly was round and tight as a drum. That night, I woke to a vicious cramp in my stomach, twisting on the kang. My groaning woke Grandma, who switched on the light and understood at once. The boy ate too much again. "You wouldn't listen," she muttered, hauling me up and wrestling me into my padded coat. "Up, outhouse, now." You have to understand what an outhouse was, out there. A few wooden poles standing in a circle, some burlap sacks hung around the outside for walls, a pit dug in the ground, with 2 planks laid across it, and if you weren't careful, you could slip and go in. And ours sat up the slope, behind the house. Just thinking about it made my skin crawl. But the cramp was unbearable, so I gritted my teeth, grabbed the family's old flashlight, and ran for it. Behind the house, the mountains rose up, black and endless. In winter, they were stripped bare, and the few old trees threw twisted shadows under a thin, sickly moon. I was crouched over the pit, straining, when I heard it. A sound from the neighbor's yard. not far off. A chewing sound, wet and steady and grinding. In the dead silence of that frozen night, it went through me like nails dragged down a blackboard. My heart clenched. I nearly dropped the flashlight into the pit. I finished as fast as I could and turned to bolt back inside. And as I passed, something made me look toward the Zhao yard. That one look nearly knocked my soul out of my body. In the pale moonlight, a black shape was crouched in the yard, holding something in its arms, gnawing at it with relish. I could hear it crack the bones. And as it ate, it tipped its head back to look at the moon, and in that instant, I saw its face clearly. Long, like a horse, round eyes bulging like brass bells, blood running down from the corners of its mouth, its black fur catching the cold light, like something that had crawled up out of hell. One word rose up in my mind, unbidden. Dama monkey. And then a second thought, worse than the first. What is it eating? I clapped both hands over my own mouth. I eased my boots off and stepped down onto the frozen ground in bare feet so it wouldn't hear me. By a small mercy, I'd left the door unlatched. I crept up onto the kang and burrowed into the quilt. Grandma felt my hands and feet, ice cold, and felt me shaking. I bit down hard so my teeth wouldn't chatter and whispered for her to go back to sleep. But every time I shut my eyes, I heard that grinding sound again, and I lay there, praying for morning. The next day, I was shaken awake. The clock on the wall said almost 11. Grandma never let me sleep that late. "Grandma, why'd you let me sleep so long?" I mumbled, still half underwater. 7 pounds, get dressed, eat something. Her face was strange as she helped me. "You silly child, why did you leave your boots out by the door?" And when she picked up those boots, all the blood in my body went cold. The night came flooding back, and I shrank into the corner of the kang and wrapped myself tight in the quilt. Outside, the neighbor's house was full of noise, a crowd. "Grandpa," I asked, "what happened at Uncle Danny's place?" "Children shouldn't ask what doesn't concern them," Grandma cut in sharply. "But children can't hold a secret." "Grandma, last night, I saw the Dama monkey." The water basin slipped from her hands and clattered to the floor. "What was it eating, Grandma? What was in its arms?" "Don't talk nonsense," she said, but her voice had gone thin. "You heard too many stories. You saw wrong." It came out anyway, the way these things do. The Zhao's baby grandson, the infant boy they'd come home to celebrate, was gone, taken in the night. That morning, the daughter-in-law had woken to find him missing from her arms. They turned the house upside down. Then old Joe opened the front door and found, in the yard, a smear of blood, a few splinters of bone, and a scrap of cloth. At first he thought a huangpizi, a weasel, had been at the chickens. Out there, a huangpizi isn't only an animal. The old folk treat it as a sly little spirit you don't want to cross. But then he looked closer. The scrap of cloth was from his grandson's clothes. And there was one more thing. That same morning, the only road out of the village had been buried under a landslide. The way out was sealed. We were trapped. Neighbors crowded into our house. The men came to my grandfather, the way they always did when something happened. "Old Chen, what do you make of the Zhao's business?" asked Uncle Jay, Chief Wang's brother, who ran the little shop on the East Lane. But before my grandfather could answer, Widow Lu spat on the floor and ground it under her heel. "Serves them right. It's karma, if you ask me." "Guifang," Grandpa snapped, her given name, not in front of the child. She fell quiet, but not before adding, half to herself, "The Zhao's come home, and that same day the road seals shut behind them. And you all tell me, there's nothing behind that?" I lay with my back turned, pretending to sleep, my ears straining. I didn't understand what she meant, but I felt the room change. That night my grandparents made their rules. From now on I would use a pot inside. I would not set foot out of the house alone, and the moment the road opened, I was going home. They had one grandson, and with what was loose in the village, they would have given their own lives to keep me safe. None of us knew yet that the killing had only just begun. For 2 days, nothing. The grown-ups went up the mountain to work, as always. But the lanes were silent. No children playing. On the third night, a scream tore the dark open. I sat bolt upright. It was close, and it wasn't coming from the Jow house. Lamps flared in every window. The men grabbed whatever was to hand and ran toward the shop, because that was where the screaming came from. "Grandma, what are those two yellow things?" I had crept to the window. Outside in the dark, two round glowing yellow points hung in the air, and they seemed to be looking back at me. The instant I called out, the thing leapt and pressed a mouth full of fangs right up against the glass. The teeth and the claws were dark with blood. The Dama monkey. Grandma saw it too, screamed, grabbed me, and ran, and by some grace, it did not follow. Almost the whole village had gathered at the shop. The women, comparing notes, found that they had all seen the Dama monkey at their windows. At the very same moment, it had driven them all out of their homes at once. Uncle Jay lay slumped over the pickle crock by his own door, his face iron blue, his eyes bulging, deep gouges raked through his thick coat to the flesh beneath. His wife and daughter were on the kang. I will not describe what was done to them. Grandma clamped a hand over my eyes and pulled me into her chest. Somewhere children were crying, and something rose up in me, and I shouted at them, "Stop crying, cry, and the Dama monkey comes for you." They went silent at once, every one of them. "Monkey! Monkey!" Yaya, Chief Wong's 4-year-old granddaughter, was pointing past us, shaking. We all turned and saw a black shape vanish into the night. "What in heaven is happening to us?" someone wailed, and from the edge of the crowd, Widow Lu let out a cold laugh. "What's happening? Don't you all already know?" And she turned and went home. The next morning the road was still sealed. The town had promised to send help. A single excavator arrived, dug for a whole day, and could not shift even one of the boulders. After that, no one came. "Old Chen, Chief, come quick, the joust again." Uncle Nick came running, drenched in sweat, in the dead of winter. By the time we reached the house, there was already a crowd. By their gate stood an old willow, its trunk so thick 2 grown men couldn't link arms around it. And from one of its branches hung Julie, the Zhao daughter-in-law, who was also Chief Wong's eldest daughter, swaying gently at the end of a thin cord. On the back of her neck were the same claw marks the others had. Her tongue lolled out, her eyes had sunk deep into her skull, and what was left of them stared, blank, toward the back mountain. Chief Wong broke first, a howl torn out of him. She was his daughter. Old Man Joe seemed to age 20 years in those few days. "That animal," he rasped. "It means to kill us all." "What good is being afraid now?" said Widow Lu, looking at the 2 old men with something close to disgust. "You'd do better to think about saving the lives you've still got." And under her breath, where she thought only I could hear, "Putting on your fine airs. Serves you right, to lose every last child." Inside, the baby, the surviving twin, a little girl, was crying with hunger. Grandma Joe muttered the words "money loser" under her breath, the cruelest thing you can call a baby girl out there, and reluctantly went to make formula. But the bottle was scalding, and the moment it touched the baby's mouth, she shrieked. Widow Lu couldn't watch it. She took the baby, soothed her a long time, and said, "Not really a question. You don't mean to keep her either, do you?" Old Joe and his wife looked away. Chief Wong didn't so much as glance at the child before turning and walking home. "Damn the whole pack of you," Widow Lu said, and carried the baby out. And not one of them moved to stop her. "Grandpa," I said, baffled, "isn't Chief Wong the baby's grandfather too? Why won't he even hold her?" Back then, I had not yet learned the 4 words that ran underneath everything in that village. Value the son, scorn the daughter. My grandfather decided we couldn't simply wait to be picked off. He sent Uncle Nick and Uncle Danny over the far ridge, on foot, to a place called Huangnigang, to fetch Old Man Lee. I knew Old Man Lee. I had loved his stories since I was small. His family had hunted these mountains for generations, and his own village had made him their guardian. Out there, Most every village kept a guardian, usually some simple, gentle soul the village looked after, believed to keep misfortune from the door. Old Man Lee was a rare kind, a guardian people genuinely revered. Grandma had told me how, years before, a man had gone up the mountain and met a Xiongjiazi, the blind bear, what the locals call the great brown bears of the forest. Knowing bears won't eat the dead, the man threw himself down and played a corpse. But this bear had grown cunning and saw through him and licked his face with a tongue rough enough to take half of it away, and just as it raised a paw to crush his skull, Old Man Lee dropped out of nowhere and drove it off. To a boy raised on hero stories, Old Man Lee was something out of the movies. He came quickly. The first thing he did was go to look at the dead. They were laid out in the brigade hall, the old village committee building, because with the road sealed, no burial party could reach us. He lifted the white cloth from each one in turn, and when he uncovered Uncle Jay's wife and child, something passed across his face that I had never seen on him before. "It's a Shanxiao that did this," he said at last, a mountain demon out of the old texts. "Three master, can it be killed?" "There's a saying," Old Man Lee answered, "better to meet a tiger or a leopard than to cross a Shangxiao. A Dama monkey is no beast an ordinary man can bring down. And the state of these bodies, this isn't hunger. This is revenge." And he turned and looked at Chief Wong, a long, level look, until the chief took a step back and edged behind my grandfather. It was true, as far as it went. Years before, in a hungry season, a few of the men had gone up and shot a troop of monkeys for the brains city men supposedly paid for, couldn't sell them, and ate them. "But my younger boy and my eldest girl never went," Wong said, "never touched the meat. So why would they be the first to die?" "That's not the reason," said Old Man Lee. "A Dama monkey holds a grudge like nothing else, but it does not kill the innocent. A spirit that murders without cause is destroyed by heaven itself, and it knows that. For it to risk its very soul to come down here, you did something. Something to make it worth the price." He looked around at the gathered villagers, and they looked at one another, and no one understood. Off to the side, Widow Lu rocked the baby, a faint, contemptuous smile at the corner of her mouth. And the strangest thing, the baby girl who days ago had been gaunt and starving, now had a round little face and slept with her small mouth curling up, as if she were having the sweetest dream. "Auntie Lu," I said, "the baby's gotten chubby." She reached out, stroked my head, and told me, gently, not to wander off.